In ancient Sparta, a woman who refused to bear children for the state would be dragged to the temple of Artemis, where she would be publicly raped by 3 to 5 elite warriors while the entire community watched. And this was considered a sacred duty. Perhaps you're thinking this can't be real. Maybe you've seen the movie 300, where Spartans are portrayed as freedom-fighting heroes, defenders of civilization against barbarism. But what if everything you thought you knew about Sparta was carefully sanitized, stripped of the truths too disturbing for modern audiences? The reality of ancient Sparta makes our darkest dystopian fiction seem tame. This was a society where newborns were inspected like livestock, where 7-year-old boys were torn from their mothers to begin lives of systematic brutalization, where young girls trained naked alongside boys to breed the strongest warriors. A place where love between spouses was considered weakness, where stealing food was encouraged but getting caught meant death, where teenagers hunted human beings for sport. We need to understand this. Not because these horrors are entertaining, but because Sparta's methods didn't die with them. Their ideology of racial purity, their obsession with creating the perfect citizen through violence, their willingness to sacrifice everything human for military dominance. These ideas hibernated through centuries only to resurface in the 20th century with devastating consequences. Together, we're about to uncover the Sparta they don't teach in schools. We'll explore why Spartan husbands not only accepted, but encouraged their wives to sleep with other men. We'll discover what the cryptor really demanded of its teenage participants, a graduation requirement so horrific that even other Greeks recoiled. We'll see how a society built on hyper-masculinity accidentally created the most liberated women in the ancient world, and why that very liberation became another tool of oppression. Most disturbingly, we'll trace the direct line from Spartan ideology to modern genocides, understanding how a small Greek city-state became the blueprint for some of history's greatest atrocities. We'll examine why they needed to officially declare war on their own slaves every year, creating a legal framework for mass murder that would echo through millennia. This isn't about judging the past by modern standards. It's about understanding how human beings can normalize the unthinkable, how entire civilizations can mistake cruelty for strength, how the pursuit of perfection can create monsters. Because once we see clearly what Sparta really was, we begin to recognize its shadow in our own world. In every society that values strength over compassion, conformity over humanity, the state over the soul, a Spartan warrior returns home unexpectedly from campaign. He pushes open the door to his bedchamber. His wife lies with another man. The warrior pauses, nods once, and quietly closes the door behind him as he leaves. No confrontation, no violence, no jealousy. This scene, incomprehensible to modern minds, played out countless times in ancient Sparta, not as betrayal, but as duty. The warrior knew his role to fight and die for the state. His wife knew hers to produce the strongest possible children, regardless of who fathered them. Welcome to the marriage bed of ancient Sparta, where intimacy itself became a tool of state control. We discover something profound when we examine Spartan wedding customs. The bride's head was shaved completely bald. She was dressed in a man's cloak and sandals. Then she waited alone in a dark room for a husband she may have never met. When he arrived, the consummation was brief business, like he left immediately to return to his military barracks. This wasn't mere tradition. Every element served a calculated purpose. The shaved head and masculine clothing weren't about humiliation. Spartan boys spent their entire youth among other males in the ago. By age 20, when marriage became mandatory, many had never seen a woman's body. The masculine presentation eased the transition, preventing what Spartans saw as dangerous emotional attachment. Consider what this meant for the bride. Perhaps 18 years old, athletic from her own training, she lies in darkness, dressed as something she's not. Rough wool scratches against skin, accustomed to exercise in sunlight. She waits for footsteps. When they come, she knows the stranger owns her future, not through love or companionship, but through biology alone. The darkness served its own purpose. Husbands were forbidden to see their wives in daylight during the first years of marriage. Night visits only, no shared meals, no conversation beyond necessity. Emotional bonds might weaken a warrior's dedication to his brothers in arms. One fragment from Plutarch reveals the depth of this restriction. A Spartan named Lysander didn't see his wife's face clearly until after she had borne him 3 children. But here's where the system reveals its true intent. Strong men who died in battle left behind widows. The state couldn't afford unused wombs, so Sparta pioneered something unprecedented in the ancient world: institutionalized wife sharing. An older man with a young wife was expected to invite younger, stronger men to impregnate her. A husband who noticed superior physical specimens among his comrades would offer his wife to them. Refusing such arrangements brought shame on all parties. We're watching the transformation of human intimacy into animal husbandry. Yet the women weren't passive victims in this system. Spartan wives could take lovers openly if their husbands proved inadequate. Unlike anywhere else in Greece, where adultery meant death, Spartan women faced no punishment for seeking stronger genetic contributors. Some accumulated multiple simultaneous partners, all with their husband's knowledge. The logic was ruthlessly simple. Every womb must produce warriors. Every strong man must spread his seed. Marriage became a breeding contract. Love, a dangerous luxury the state couldn't afford. Archaeological evidence from Spartan grave sites supports these accounts. We find remarkably few family burial plots. Children weren't interred with parents. Husbands and wives rarely shared tombs. Death, like birth, belonged to the state, but graves tell us something else. The skeletal remains of Spartan women show extraordinary physical development. Dense bones, muscle attachment points indicating serious athletic training. These weren't secluded Greek wives weaving at home. They were athletes, possibly the fittest women in the ancient world. The state needed them strong. Weak mothers produced weak children. So while Athenian women lived in seclusion, Spartan girls exercised naked alongside boys, threw javelins, wrestled. They ate the same food as their brothers instead of being half-starved like women elsewhere in Greece. This created an unintended consequence the lawmakers never anticipated. Physical strength bred mental independence. Economic power followed. Spartan women could own land, conduct business, speak publicly. By the 4th century B.C.E., they controlled 40% of Spartan territory. Here emerges the bitter irony. A system designed to reduce women to breeding stock accidentally created the most liberated women in the ancient world. But that liberation came with a price. They were free because they were useful, independent because the state needed them that way, powerful only within the narrow confines of producing and raising future killers. The psychological toll must have been crushing. These women were raised as athletes and warriors, trained to be strong and proud. Then marriage reduced them to genetic vessels. They could take lovers, but couldn't choose childlessness. They could own property, but not their own bodies. They were simultaneously more free and more enslaved than any women in Greece. We glimpse this inner conflict in one historical fragment. When an Athenian woman asked a Spartan queen why Spartan women were the only ones who could rule men, she replied, "Because we are the only women who give birth to men." Pride and prison in a single sentence. The children born from these loveless unions faced immediate judgment. Within days of birth, elders inspected them. Too small, deformed, weak cry. They were carried to Mount Taygetos and thrown into a chasm called the apathetai, the deposits, as if these infants were merely flawed materials being discarded. Those who passed inspection weren't returned to their mother's arms for long. The state had plans for them. Every accepted child represented potential, but potential for what? The answer varied by gender, but the destination was the same: service to Sparta unto death. The boys would learn to kill without conscience. The girls would learn to birth killers without complaint. Love between parent and child became another casualty of the Spartan system. Mothers knew their sons would be taken at 7. Fathers saw their children rarely, if at all. Families as we understand them simply didn't exist. One Spartan mother, when told her 5 sons had all died in battle, asked, "Only did we win?" Upon hearing they had, she said, "Then I have no reason to weep. This wasn't callousness, this was survival." In a society where maternal grief was seen as treason, emotions themselves became dangerous. The marriage bed that began this horror story was just the first station in a lifelong factory of dehumanization. Next came the barracks where 7-year old boys would begin their transformation into something no longer quite human. But before we follow them there, we need to understand what happened to the failures, those infants thrown into the apothe, because archaeologists have found that chasm, and what lies at the bottom challenges everything we thought we knew about Spartan efficiency. The bones tell a different story than the legends suggest. The mountain air bites with winter cold, though inside the birthing chamber, sweat pours from the mother's face. Her screams echo off stone walls as elders wait in the adjoining room, their hands already reaching for the infant who hasn't yet drawn breath. 7 men stand in shadow, the Gerisa, Sparta's council of judgment. Their fingers know the weight of healthy muscle, the firmness of strong bone. They've performed this ritual countless times. Some infants pass their test in moments. Others never leave this room alive. The final push comes with dawn light. A baby's cry pierces the air, but this sound brings no joy, only evaluation. Too weak, too shrill. The elders lean forward, listening. Everything depends on these first moments. The midwife carries the newborn to them immediately. No time for the mother to hold her child, to memorize its face. The father stands silent in the corner. He knows his duty. If the verdict goes badly, he'll be the one to carry this bundle to the mountain. Now comes the examination. Old hands probe tiny limbs, checking muscle tone, joint flexibility, skull shape. They're looking for perfection, but their definition includes things we might miss. A birthmark too large, eyes spaced wrongly, ears that seem misshapen. Any deviation marks this child for death. The mother lies exhausted listening. She hears the murmur of voices but can't make out words. Her body still trembles from labor, yet she must appear strong. Weakness in the mother suggests weakness in the child. She forces herself upright, though blood still flows. One elder shakes his head, another nods. They confer in whispers while the baby grows cold in their hands. No blanket wraps this child. Exposure tests its constitution. If it shivers too much, cries too loudly, that's another mark against survival. The verdict comes swiftly. A healthy boy, strong lungs, good proportions. He'll live for now. The midwife returns him to his mother for feeding. She has perhaps 6 years before the state claims it completely. 6 years to pour whatever love she can into a child destined for brutality. But not every examination ends this way. When the judgment goes against an infant, protocol demands immediate action. The father steps forward. His face shows nothing. Emotion would shame his household, suggest attachment to defective offspring. He takes the condemned child, wraps it loosely in rough cloth. The journey to Mount Titas takes 2 hours on foot. Other fathers have walked this path before him. Their footprints mark the trail. At the summit, a natural chasm yawns open. The apathetic, the word means deposits, as though these babies were broken pottery being discarded. The depth makes survival impossible. The fall alone would kill, but exposure finishes what gravity begins. We don't have to imagine this scene. Archaeological evidence confirms it. In 2007, excavations at the suspected site uncovered exactly what the ancient sources described: infant bones, hundreds of them, layer upon layer of tiny skeletons accumulated over centuries. But the bones revealed something unexpected. Not all the remains belonged to newborns. Some skeletons showed signs of older children, perhaps 2 or 3 years old. This suggests the selection process continued beyond birth. A child who developed slowly, showed weakness later, faced the same fate as those condemned in their first hours. DNA analysis of the remains proves another disturbing fact. Many of these children showed no obvious deformities. Their bones appear normal. Their deaths came from subjective judgments. Perhaps a cry deemed too weak, a temperament too gentle. The margin between life and death was narrower than we imagined. The psychological impact on parents defies comprehension. Every Spartan father potentially carried his own child to death. Every mother watched her newborn examined like livestock. Even those whose children survived knew that judgment could come later. A fever that lasted too long, a limp that didn't heal quickly. Any sign of imperfection meant another walk to the mountain. Some fragments suggest mothers attempted to hide defects, a club foot bound straight, a weak eye turned away from inspectors, but the consequences of discovery were severe, not just for the child, but for the family. Attempting to preserve inferior offspring betrayed the state itself. The examination process created its own cruel dynamics. Pregnant women exercise frantically, hoping to ensure their baby's survival. They ate specific foods rumored to produce stronger children. Some consulted oracles, made offerings to gods, anything to avoid that walk to Tito's. Yet even successful births brought limited joy. Parents knew their healthy children were merely on loan. Boys would leave at 7 for the ago. Girls would train for their own brutal purpose. The family unit existed only to produce future warriors, never to nurture or protect. This system of infant inspection spread beyond mere physical assessment. The elders looked for intangible qualities, a certain alertness in the eyes, a grip that suggested future strength, crying patterns that indicated proper aggression. They were selecting for temperament as much as body, choosing babies who already showed signs of the hardness Sparta required. The ritual took place in the Lee, a public building where citizens gathered. This wasn't hidden. Other parents waiting their turn could hear verdicts delivered, babies condemned. The public nature served its own purpose. Everyone must witness the state's absolute authority over life and death. Everyone must accept it. Foreign visitors to Sparta expressed horror at these practices. Even in the violent ancient world, the systematic killing of infants shocked other Greeks. Aristotle wrote that while other cities might expose unwanted children to die, only Sparta mandated it by law. Only Sparta made it a religious duty. The priests of Artemis blessed each decision. Divine approval sanctified infanticide. Parents couldn't even grieve properly. To mourn a child deemed unworthy insulted the gods themselves. The state transformed natural parental love into sin. Records indicate some women bore 10 or more children, knowing most would die either in infancy or training. They became birth machines, producing offspring for the state to sort. Their bodies showed the strain. Skeletal remains of Spartan women reveal stress markers from repeated pregnancies even as they maintained the muscle mass of athletes. The few foreign women who married into Sparta faced special scrutiny. Their children underwent even harsher examination, checked for any sign of nonce, Spartan weakness. Many didn't survive the first inspection. Those who did faced lifelong suspicion. Always one perceive failure from joining their siblings in the chasm, but the apathet held more than infant bones. Excavations uncovered adult skeletons too, criminals, traitors, those who failed the state in other ways. The chasm that swallowed imperfect babies also consumed imperfect citizens. From birth to death. The mountain waited. The surrounding area shows evidence of ritual activity. Pottery shards, burnt offerings. This wasn't mere disposal. It was sacrifice. Each rejected child became an offering to Spartan ideals of perfection. Their deaths purchased the supposed strength of those who survived. Modern genetic analysis of the remains reveals another layer of tragedy. Many of the condemned infants showed markers for conditions that, while visible at birth, wouldn't have prevented meaningful lives. A mild limb difference, benign birthmarks, conditions we now know pose no barrier to strength or achievement, but Sparta allowed no deviation from its narrow definition of perfection. The mountains around Tito's hold other secrets. Smaller sites suggest some parents couldn't bring themselves to use the official chasm. They found other places, perhaps hoping to give their children more dignified resting places. Even in a society that criminalized compassion, human nature sometimes broke through. Yet the system endured for centuries. Generation after generation of parents submitted their newborns for inspection. Generation after generation of fathers made that terrible walk. Practice became so normalized that its absence would have seemed strange. This was simply how Spartans began life, with a test that many failed. The children who passed faced their own trials ahead. At 7, boys would enter the age where different forms of selection would thin their numbers. First, they had 6 years of conditional childhood. 6 years when any sign of weakness could still send them to the mountain. 6 years of being watched, measured, assessed. The next phase of Spartan selection wouldn't wait for inspectors to identify weakness. It would create situations where weakness meant death, where only the most brutal survived to adulthood. The training grounds of the ago made the apothe seem almost merciful by comparison. The morning sun catches on small fingers wrapped around a wooden sword. 6 years old, he practices the moves his mother taught him in their courtyard. Each thrust carries desperate precision. She knows what comes next year. When winter breaks into spring, every Spartan mother counted down from birth. 2,555 days, that's all the state allowed. Then armed men would arrive at dawn and her son would cross the threshold from child to citizen slave. No tears permitted, No final embrace, just empty arms and silence. We discover the cruelest aspect of this system in the year before separation. Mothers faced an impossible choice. Pour love into a child about to be traumatized or begin the emotional severing early. Create precious memories that would torture both of you or start building the walls that might help you both survive. Some chose distance. They hired nurses, avoided eye contact, spoke only when necessary. Their sons grew cold before the state could freeze them. These mothers thought detachment might ease the breaking. Instead, their boys arrived at the ago already damaged, already alone. Others took the opposite path. They filled those final months with fierce devotion, extra food hidden in clothing, stories whispered after dark, secret symbols of protection sewn into tunics. These mothers chose heartbreak over hollowness. Their sons at least knew they had been loved once. The archaeological record preserves traces of both strategies. Toys buried in gardens never to be played with again. Locks of hair hidden in small clay vessels. Tiny sandals worn smooth, saved by someone who couldn't let go. Each artifact whispered of countdown calendars marked in tears. Training for separation began early. 5-year-old boys attended priage exercises, not the full brutality, but tastes of what awaited. They returned home bruised, hungry, confused. Mothers had to celebrate these injuries as progress. Any sign of concern marked both parent and child as weak. A Spartan woman named Demetria left us one fragment of testimony. Her son came home with a split lip from fighting older boys. She cleaned the wound while praising his courage. That night, she found blood on her own pillow where she'd bitten through her tongue to keep from crying where he might hear. The state provided detailed instructions for this final year. Boys must sleep on increasingly thin mats, preparing for bare ground. Meals should shrink gradually, accustoming stomachs to hunger. Mothers must speak less each month, weaning sons from the comfort of familiar voices. Love itself became regimented, rationed, measured in permitted doses. Some mothers broke. The historical record mentions women who fled Sparta with their sons rather than surrender them. They rarely made it past the borders. When caught, the boys went to the edge anyway. Mothers disappeared, examples had to be set, but flight wasn't the only form of resistance. Some women taught their sons secret ways to stay human, a gesture that meant, "I'm thinking of you." A song that could be hummed silently for comfort. These small rebellions passed between generations of mothers, whispered preparations for preserving some spark of self through the darkness ahead. Fathers played almost no role in these final months. They'd already distanced themselves, preparing for warrior brotherhood to replace biological bonds. A few fragments suggest some fathers secretly grieved too, but the evidence remains thin. Male emotions left fewer traces in a society that forbade them entirely. The physical preparation intensified as 7 approached. Mothers exercised their sons past exhaustion, not from cruelty, but desperate love. The stronger he arrived, the better his chances. Some hired retired soldiers to teach extra combat techniques. Others paid for black market food to build final reserves of strength. What kind of love grows under a death sentence? These mothers nursed babies they might lose to Mount Teatos. They raised toddlers who could be condemned at any moment. Now they prepared 6-year-olds for organized torture, yet they loved fiercely, completely knowing the price. The economy of preparation created its own market. Trainers who specialized in priage conditioning, suppliers who sold gradually rougher clothing, even fortune tellers who claimed to predict which boys would survive the training. Mothers grasped at any advantage, any edge that might help their sons endure. Dreams haunted these final months. Mothers reported the same nightmares, their sons calling for them from the Agaj barracks. Empty beds that stayed empty, grown warriors returning home, wearing their children's faces but with hollow eyes. The mind rehearsed loss before it arrived. Some women bore multiple sons, staggering their births to avoid losing several at once. But this brought its own torture, watching older boys leave, knowing younger ones would follow, the house emptying in stages, each departure reopening wounds that never quite healed. The final month brought frantic activity, clothes mended one last time, favorite foods prepared again and again, stories told and retold as if words could build armor against what was coming. Some mothers made their sons small tokens to hide in their clothing, though discovery meant punishment. A smooth stone, a scrap of cloth that smelled like home, anything to bridge the coming distance. Religious rituals offered little comfort. Priests blessed these separations as divine will. Gods demanded warriors, therefore, mothers must surrender sons. To question this theology was blasphemy. To grieve too openly, sacrilege. Faith itself became another tool of control. The night before taking brought no sleep. Mothers lay awake, memorizing the sound of their child's breathing. Some crept doorways watching small bodies curled in rest. How do you prepare for amputation of the heart? How do you practice for the moment your child becomes a stranger? Dawn arrived regardless. The ceremony varied little. Armed escorts appeared as roosters crowed. The boy had moments to dress, gather his few permitted items, no breakfast. The ago would feed him or not as it chose. Mothers stood in doorways, faces carved from stone. The historical accounts preserve one detail that breaks the heart. Many boys didn't cry until they could no longer see their homes. They held their composure for their mother's sake, protecting them even in leaving. Only when distance granted privacy did 7-year-old warriors allow themselves to be children one last time. Mothers weren't permitted to follow, to watch until they disappeared. The door closed. The house stood empty, and somewhere in kitchens and courtyards across Sparta, women who had given everything to the state began counting different numbers. Days survived, years until they might see their sons again, if ever. The ago that received these boys had been preparing too. Older students sharpened their skills at breaking down newcomers. Instructors plotted optimal brutalization schedules. The machinery of transformation stood ready to consume whatever softness mothers had failed to eliminate. But first came the initiation, the welcome that would teach these 7-year-olds their childhood was dead. The first night held special significance in the Agage system. What happened in those dark hours determined who might eventually emerge and who would join their rejected siblings in unmarked graves. The systematic destruction of humanity began before the sun set on their first day. Cold stone presses against bare feet. 7 years old, you stand with 40 other boys in darkness thick enough to taste. No one speaks. Speaking brings pain. You learn that within minutes of arrival, the barracks smell wrong. Not like home with its bread and olive oil and mother's lavender. This place reeks of old sweat, fear, urine, something else you can't name yet. Later you'll recognize it as desperation. Tonight it just makes your empty stomach clench tighter. An older boy moves between the rows of new arrivals, 15, maybe 16. His torch throws wild shadows. When he stops before you, the flame reveals dead eyes and a young face. He studies you like a farmer, examining livestock. Your tunic vanishes first. The wool that mother wove that still smells faintly of her hands. He cuts it away with a bronze knife. The blade kisses close enough to skin that you feel its chill, but don't dare flinch. Flinching marks you. Everything marks you here. Next comes the hair, not gently shah, but ripped in handfuls. Your scalp burns where chunks tear free. Blood trickles warm behind one ear. You bite your tongue to trap the sound that wants to escape. Beside you, another boy fails this test. His whimper earns a fist to the stomach. He drops retching. No one helps him stand. The older boy continues his work. Every new arrival must be stripped of outside softness. Clothes, hair, names. Yes, names too. From tonight forward, you're nothing but what they make you. The person your mother kissed goodbye this morning no longer exists. When the cutting ends, you stand naked and shorn, shivering in mountain air that flows through gaps in stone walls. Your feet already ache from cold. You'll learn to treasure this minor discomfort. Soon frozen feet will seem like luxury compared to other pains. Commands come in grunts and gestures. Follow, don't follow fast enough. Pain, turn wrong. Pain, the language of the Aog needs few words. Bruises teach vocabulary faster than any tutor. You're led deeper into the complex. Corridors twist without logic. Darkness swallows landmarks. This too serves purpose. Lost boys can't run home, though even if you found an exit, where would you go? The world outside offers no refuge to Agage deserters. The sleeping hall opens before you. Row upon row of shapes in darkness. Not beds, never beds, just bodies on bare ground. Each claimed space no larger than what a corpse would need. The older boys have cloaks. You'll learn yours or die trying. Your assigned spot is wet. The boy who slept here last night didn't survive to dry it. You lower yourself onto stone that reeks of his final moments. The cold shoots through skin to bone around you. Other new arrivals find their places. Some cry silently. Tears freeze on cheeks. Then comes the sound that will haunt every night forward. Breathing. Hundreds of boys breathing in darkness. But wrong somehow. Too controlled, too careful. Even sleep comes guarded here. Lungs that relax too much might not fill again. Morning arrives at violence, not sunrise through windows. The agoge has no windows. Instead, kicks to ribs announce dawn. You scramble upright, ribs screaming as older boys move through rows, delivering wake-up calls with practiced brutality. The breakfast hall mocks its name. Long tables, empty bowls, 400 boys, food. For maybe half, the arithmetic is simple, the execution is chaos. You understand now why they took your names. Animals don't need names, and what happens next strips away any illusion of humanity. Boys transform to beasts, fighting over black bread and thin soup. Fists fly, teeth find flesh. Strong eat, the weak watch, the weakest disappear entirely. An instructor observes from the corner. He counts bodies not to prevent violence but to track it. Who attacks first, who claims the most, who fails to fight at all. Every detail enters his mental ledger. The agoge keeps careful record of transformation. You manage to grab a crust, someone drops. It tastes like ash and old grain. Your stomach barely recognizes it as food, but you chew slowly, making it last. Around you, boys lick empty bowls, suck spilled drops from tables. Pride died yesterday with your hair. Training begins immediately after the feeding frenzy. No time to digest what little you claimed. The exercise ground waits under summer sun that promises to blister pale skin. You're arranged by size, not age. A small 12-year-old stands beside you. His eyes hold knowledge yours lack. First comes running, not joyful sprints of children playing. This is different, controlled, measured. Run until legs fail, then run more. Anyone who stops meets the whip. Not dramatic flogging. Just enough sting to teach that exhaustion is opinion, not fact. The dust tastes like iron. Or maybe that's blood from where you bit your tongue. Hard to tell anymore. Everything blurs together. Pain in lungs, pain in legs. Pain becomes background noise, constant as your heartbeat. Water exists. You can see barrels at the field's edge, but drinking requires permission. Permission requires perfection. No one achieves perfection on their first day. So the water taunts, close enough to smell, but forever out of reach. Combat training follows running. They pair you with the 12-year-old. His name was Alexios once. Now he's just another survivor. He's supposed to teach you basic holds. Instead, he breaks your finger. Quick, efficient, like snapping a twig. The instructor nods approval. Alexios demonstrated proper technique. Your scream showed unacceptable weakness. Both lessons matter here. You cradle the ruined finger, bone jutting at wrong angles. No one offers to set it. Medical care must be earned or stolen. That's when you learn the agoge's most fundamental rule. Everything must be stolen. Food beyond your ration, bandages for wounds, warmth in winter. The state provides nothing past bare survival. Sometimes not even that. But stealing carries its own law. Success brings reward. Capture brings punishment that makes you wish for death. The agoge teaches theft as survival skill, then brutally punishes poor execution. They're not creating thieves. They're creating perfect thieves. Night returns too soon. Your finger throbs in rhythm with your heartbeat. Hunger nor deeper than this morning. The older boys prepare for something. You catch fragments of whispered planning. Tomorrow they hunt, not animals. You curl on your whetstone, trying to protect the broken finger. Around you, other 7-year-olds quietly fracture. One rocks back and forth, humming something his mother taught him. He won't last the week. Another hasn't moved since combat training. He might not last the night. The breathing symphony begins again, but now you understand its rhythm. Each boy breathes ready to fight. Even unconscious, they guard against attack, because attacks come. Territory disputes, food, theft, simple cruelty. The darkness hides predator and prey equally. Somewhere in the building, a boy screams, not pain, worse. The sound cuts off abruptly. The breathing around you doesn't change. Everyone heard. No one reacts. Acknowledging horror makes you part of it. Better to pretend sleep. Your mother exists somewhere under these same stars. Does she lie awake wondering? Does she count the hours since morning? You'll never know that life ended with sunrise. This is existence now. Survive tonight. Face tomorrow. Repeat until you break or become unbreakable. The first week passes in fragments. Each day bleeds into the next. Your finger heals crooked. You learn to fight around the weakness. Funny how quickly necessity rewrites possibility. You've stolen your first meal successfully. Nothing grand. Half a moldy onion dropped by an older boy. but it filled your stomach for an hour and you weren't caught. Small victories matter when defeat means death. The boy who hummed his mother's songs disappeared Tuesday. No explanation, no body, just an empty space on stone. That another new arrival filled by nightfall. You've learned not to ask questions. Questions mark you at still human. Humanity is weakness here. Physical transformation comes fast. Your body soft from mother's care hardens under constant assault. Ribs show through skin. Muscles appear where baby fat melted. The mirror of polished bronze in the washing area shows a stranger's face, hollow cheeks, empty eyes, 7 years old with an old man's stare, but the mental changes cut deeper. You catch yourself evaluating other boys as threats or resources, nothing more, that crying child from the first night. He's weakness that might contaminate you. The strong older boy, he's danger to avoid or opportunity to exploit. Human connections become mathematics of survival. The instructors watch these changes with satisfaction. They're not just training warriors, they're manufacturing something specific. Humans who can kill without conscience. Machines of flesh programmed for violence. Citizens who exist only for state purpose. Week 3 brings new horror. They call it the cheese feast, though feast mocks the reality. A small altar, a single round of cheese, 400 starving boys, and permission to take what you can claim. The stronger boys form packs. Strategy emerges from desperation. Some create diversions, others attempt stealth. The cheese disappears in seconds, but the fighting continues. Possession means nothing if you can't keep it. Boys beat each other for crumbs already swallowed. You learn to use your size. Smaller means faster. Weaker means overlooked. While titans clash, you dart between legs, snatch what falls. It's not brave, it's not honorable, but it fills your stomach for another day. The broken finger becomes advantage. Other boys avoid damaging already ruined goods. They seek healthy victims. Your deformity grants invisibility. You cultivate more injuries, careful damage that hinders less than it protects. Survival through selective destruction. Month 2 introduces weapons, not real blades yet. Wooden swords weighted to match bronze, but wood breaks bones as easily as metal, sometimes easier. The splinters cause infections that metal's clean cuts avoid. They pair you against boys twice your size, David versus Goliath, except no one roots for David here. You lose repeatedly, brutally. Each loss teaches through pain. Guard this way or ribs crack. Strike there or fingers shatter. Education written in purple bruises and seeping cuts. But something strange happens. You stop feeling the beatings, not physically. The pain remains constant, but emotionally nothing. That boy splitting your lip might as well be weather, impersonal, inevitable. Neither hatred nor fear, just event and response. The instructors notice this deadied acceptance. It pleases them. You're approaching what they want. A thing that feels pain but doesn't suffer. That experiences violence without trauma. Human nerve endings in an inhuman shell. Your memories of home fade like morning mist. Mother's face blurs. Her voice becomes whisper, then silence. You know you had a life before here, but knowing and feeling are different things. That past might as well be someone else's story. The present consumes everything. When do we eat? Who threatens my position? Where can I steal cloth for winter? These questions leave no room for others. Philosophy is luxury. Memory is weakness. Only now matters. Other boys break differently. Some rage, fighting everything until exhaustion or death claims them. Others retreat inward, bodies present but minds elsewhere. These ones die slowly, forgetting to fight for food, to guard their sleep spots. The ego patient with passive suicide. You choose a third path, not rage, not retreat, adaptation. You study the older boys who survive, not the strongest always, the smartest. The ones who turn the system's brutality into personal advantage. They don't fight the agoge, they become it. One boy, maybe 14, never seemed hungry despite never fighting during feeds. You watch him carefully. He's made alliances, not friendships, business arrangements. He provides something others value. Information, protection, planned losses in training bouts. In exchange, they share food. The lesson is clear. Pure strength has limits. Intelligence multiplied by ruthlessness equals survival. You begin your own experiments, small trades, calculated risks, learning who can be trusted exactly as far as their self-interest extends. Winter arrives with its own torments. The mountain cold invades every corner. Snow drifts through those same gaps that admitted summer breeze. Now they channel ice directly onto sleeping boys. Several freeze before dawn. The survivors strip bodies for any cloth, any warmth. You've grown skilled at theft. A cloak here, sandals there. Never enough to be comfortable, just enough to avoid death. The punishment for court stealing intensifies with winter, as if the cold itself weren't sufficient deterrent. But you're caught eventually. Everyone is. The whip feels almost warm against frozen skin. 20 lashes. You count each one, focusing on numbers instead of pain. Mathematics is meditation. When it ends, you understand something new. They don't punish theft. They punish failure. The distinction matters. Spring's arrival brings no relief. New 7. Year. Olds arrive soft and crying like you once were. You feel nothing watching them shatter. No sympathy. No remembered kinship. They're simply new resources to exploit or threats to eliminate. The cycle continues. You're 8 now. Still among the youngest, but no longer new. You know which instructors hit hardest. Which older boys torture for pleasure versus utility. Where to hide, when to fight. How to survive another day. But survival isn't living. You haven't laughed in months. Haven't cried either. Those responses atrophied like unused muscles. You exist between extremes, neither happy nor sad, of just present, alert, ready. Sometimes at night. That dangerous time when exhaustion loosens mental discipline. You almost remember being someone else, a boy with a name, a mother who sang, food that tasted like more than fuel, but remembering hurts worse than any beating, so you learn to stop. The agoge is winning. Day by day it carves away whatever your mother tried to preserve. Soon nothing will remain but what they've built. A perfect soldier, an empty vessel filled with state purpose, and the truly horrifying part, you're beginning to prefer it this way. Caring hurts, feeling exhausts. Better to be stoned. Better to break others before they break you. Better to embrace the monster than fight. Becoming one, because fighting is futile here. The agage doesn't just train warriors. It manufactures them from the raw material of children, and the process is working. You're becoming exactly what Sparta demands. The moon hasn't risen yet. Perfect conditions for what must be done. You crouch in the thorny scrub outside a helot settlement, knife heavy in your hand, watching smoke rise from the chimney of your target's home. 19 years old. 12 years of agage training have led to this moment. Every beating absorbed, every hunger endured, every fragment of humanity stripped away prepared you for tonight. The Kripa, your final examination. The selection process began 3 months ago. Only the strongest earned this privilege. Or was it curse? The distinction blurred long ago. The Air FS gathered your training cohort, studying each candidate with eyes that had witnessed decades of this ritual. They sought specific qualities, not just physical prowess. The crypto demanded something harder to define. You remember standing in that line, face neutral while your mind raced. Some boys practically vibrated with eagerness. Others couldn't hide their dread. Both groups failed. The Ayers wanted neither bloodlust nor reluctance. They wanted empty vessels, tools without opinion. When they spoke your name, you felt nothing. Perfect. That nothingness earned you this crouched position, watching a family prepare for sleep. Inside, they're sharing their evening meal. Barley jurel, perhaps some olives. The helots eat better than you did in the age, though not by much. Your target's profile appears briefly in the doorway. Broad shoulders, strong back from years of farming Spartan land. The E4s choose carefully. No sick elders or weak children for the crypta. You must kill strength. Prove yourself against someone who might actually fight back. The briefing was precise. This man leads prayers at their gatherings, not rebellion, not yet, but leadership of any kind among helots threatens stability. Better to remove potential before it becomes problem. You're not murdering. You're performing preventive surgery on the body of the state. A child laughs inside the house. Young, maybe 5 or 6, the same age you were when everything changed. The sound should trigger something. Memory, sympathy, recognition. Instead, you note only tactical information. A child means parents will fight harder, plan accordingly. Hours pass. Your legs cramp from maintaining position. Pain is old friend now, easily ignored. You've waited longer for worse reasons. That punishment week, when they made you hold horse stance until boys started collapsing. This is nothing. The house grows quiet, one by one, lamps extinguish. You count heartbeats, measuring time, give them long enough to fall deep. Not so long that dawn threatens. The cryptier permits killing. Getting caught brings death. Not for the murder, for the incompetence. Time arrives. You move like the mountain cat. They taught you to emulate, each foot placement calculated. Avoid the loose gravel. Circle away from the dog sleeping by the door. Use the wind to carry your scent away. Lessons written in scar tissue guide every choice. The door poses no challenge. Helots aren't permitted locks. Another reminder of their status, neither slave nor free. Something between something less. The wood cacks slightly as you ease inside. You freeze, counting 20 breaths. Nothing stirs. Navigation in darkness comes naturally now. Those years of midnight raids in the age. Older boys hunting younger ones through black corridors. You learn to see with more than eyes. The hearth's dying embers provide just enough glow to outline shapes. There, the main sleeping area. 2 forms under rough blankets. Your target and his wife. The child must sleep elsewhere. Good. Complications serve no purpose tonight. You need clean execution, nothing more. Which one first? Training, says the man. Remove primary threat immediately. But something in their positioning suggests otherwise. She lies facing the door. He faces the wall. She's the guardian. He trusts her vigilance. Kill her first, or she'll wake him with her. Dying, you drift closer. The knife feels alive in your hand. Bronze, not iron. Traditional for the crypta. Your ancestors used these same tools for the same purpose. Continuity of murder across generations. She shifts in her sleep, murmurs something, a name perhaps. You pause above her, studying the exposed throat. One motion, quick, silent. Don't let her wake. Don't let her know. Grant that mercy at least. But mercy is weakness. And weakness died in the age. The blade enters just below her jaw, angling up. Textbook perfect. She gasps once, eyes flying open. Her hand reaches not for wound but toward her husband. Warning, protection, love. The gesture dies incomplete. Warm blood coats your fingers. The smell fills your nostrils. Iron and fear an ending. You've butchered animals before. This feels identical. Should it? The question floats through your mind without finding purchase. The husband stirs. His wife's final sound penetrated sleep. You're already moving, crossing the small space between them. He's beginning to turn, beginning to understand. Too late. Always too late when death comes calling. He's stronger than expected. Farm work builds different muscles than combat training. His hand catches your wrist, grinding bones. But you have 12 years of grappling experience. You know every counter, every escape. The knife finds his heart, while he's still trying to comprehend his wife's silence. 2 bodies cooling in darkness. Task complete, except it's not. The crypta demands more than simple assassination. You must leave a message. Other helots will find this scene tomorrow. They need to understand you arrange the corpses carefully. Positioning matters. They must see that resistance brings not just death but humiliation. That Spartan youth can't enter any home, take any life, that nowhere is safe, that no one is protected. The psychological warfare matters more than the killings. A sound from deeper in the house freezes you. Footsteps small. The child, of course. Children wake when routine breaks, when the sounds of sleeping parents cease. When death enters their home, she appears in the doorway. Tiny dark hair like her mother's eyes that haven't learned to hide emotion yet. She sees you first, blood-covered stranger in her home. Then her gaze travels to the bed, to shapes that should be moving but aren't. You calculate options. No witnesses, the Air Force said, but they meant adult witnesses. Children forget. Children's testimonies carry no weight. Children. She doesn't scream, strange, most would. Instead, she stares with eyes that seem older than her years, as if she always knew this night would come, as if helot children grow up expecting murder to visit. You could let her live, claim she never woke. Who would know? But that thinking leads nowhere. Useful. The Kripa tests more than ability. It tests commitment. Will you do what's necessary without hesitation, without conscience? The knife is already moving when she finally speaks. Just one word, please, soft as moth wings. The blade stops an inch from her throat. That word, you haven't heard it in so long. The agode strips away politeness along with everything else. This pause is weakness. You recognize it even as it happens. Some fragment of whoever you were before struggles against what you've become. But that person is 12 years dead. What stands here now is Sparta's creation. Perfect, empty, decisive. Yet the knife doesn't complete its arc. The child watches you with those impossible eyes, waiting as if she sees the war inside you, as if she recognizes something human still flickering beneath the trained killer. You think suddenly of your first night in the Anjou, 7 years old, terrified. Would someone have paused if ordered to kill you then? Would momentary mercy have saved you from becoming this thing that murders families in darkness? The question is poison. Questions are always poison. The ego taught you that. Don't think, react, don't feel, execute, don't remember, survive. But she's so small. And that word please echoes in spaces you thought were sealed. It finds cracks in 12 years of conditioning. Seeps through barriers built from brutality. This is the true test, not whether you can kill. Any fool with a blade can end life, but can you kill when something inside screams stop? Can you complete your transformation from human to weapon? The E4s are clever. They know some vestige of person might survive the ego. So they devise this final exam, not just murder, specific murder, the kind that forces you to choose between who you were and what you must become. The child hasn't moved, hasn't run, as if she knows her fate depends on a battle she can't see. Her stillness is gift and curse. Easier to kill, fleeing, harder to execute the accepting. Dawn threatens the horizon. You've spent too long here. Each moment increases danger. Hellalot farmers rise early. Discovery means failure. Failure means death. Not clean death like you've granted tonight. Slow death, public death, educational death. Choose now, forever. What are you? You're Sparta's instrument. Nothing more, nothing less. The knife completes its motion. Quick, clean, merciful as murder can be. The child crumples without sound, joining her parents in whatever darkness waits beyond. No satisfaction comes. No regret either, just emptiness. Perfect, a gauge emptiness. You've passed the final test. Killed not just bodies, but whatever remained of your soul. The crypto is complete. You slipped from the house as silently as you entered. Behind you, 3 bodies cool in the preed. On air. Tomorrow, helots will find them, will understand the message written in their positions, will remember that Spartan youth hunt humans for grades. The journey back to the barracks passes without incident. You avoid the main paths, moving through territory you've scouted for weeks. Every successful cryptire requires preparation. The killing is smallest part. Other candidates are returning too. Shadows sliding through shadows. Some walk steadily, task complete. Others stumble, affected by what they've done. These ones might not last. The crypto breaks some men, not through violence, through success. You report to the air as sunrise paints the mountains. They ask no questions. Your blood-stained hands tell the story. A mark goes beside your name. Pasted, graduated, ready for full military service. But ready for what exactly? You've proven you can kill without conscience, follow orders without question, betray every human instinct. You're perfectly prepared for warfare, completely unsuited for peace. They assign you to a mess unit that afternoon. 15 other men who have survived similar trials. You're brothers now, bonded through shared monstrosity. Together, you'll form one of Sparta's elite units. Killers who have proven they'll do anything for the state. The younger boys in the ego look at you differently now. You wear the mark of the crypta. They know what you've done. Some worship you for it. Others fear you. Both reactions feel equally hollow. That night you lie in barracks that suddenly seem luxurious compared to ago stones, a real sleeping mat, actual blankets, regular food, all purchased with blood. The child's face floats behind your eyelids, not haunting, just there, fact without feeling. You wonder if this is what the E4s truly wanted, not just obedience, complete emotional death. They've created soldiers who can commit any atrocity without psychological consequence. Perfect tools for maintaining their system. Sleep comes easily. Another sign of successful conditioning. You've done terrible things today. Your body doesn't care. Neither does your mind. The ego has built you well. Trauma slides off like rain from oiled leather. Tomorrow begins formal military training. New weapons, new tactics, but nothing will match today's lesson. You've learned the ultimate truth of Spartan society. Everything is permitted against enemies, and everyone is potentially enemy. The other graduates share your 1,000. Why stare? Boys who entered different houses, killed different families, faced their own moments of choice. All chose Sparta over humanity. Now you're bound by shared damnation. Some speak quietly of their assignments. Technical details only. This one fought back. That one begged. Children present or absent, but no one mentions feelings. Those died with your victims. Perhaps that's the real genius of the system. You're all 19. In other cities, you'd be starting careers, marrying, building futures. Here, you've just graduated from 13 years of manufactured psychopathy, ready to spend remaining decades spreading the same violence that created you. The Kripa serves multiple purposes, terror for Helot final test for warriors, but most importantly, it creates unbreakable psychological chains. After murdering innocents for grades, what moral lines remain? What orders could you possibly refuse? This realization brings no discomfort. The ago removed your capacity for moral distress alongside everything else. You understand your role perfectly. Sparta needs monsters. You've proven yourself monstrous. Transaction complete. A messenger arrives as you prepare for sleep. Tomorrow's training begins before dawn. Formation drills, weapons practice, the machinery of war. You'll excel. The Kripa graduates always do. Men who have killed children fear nothing battlefields can offer. You close your eyes, no dreams come. Dreams require imagination, and imagination died somewhere between that first night on cold stone and tonight's warm blood. You've become exactly what they intended, empty vessel filled with state purpose. The transformation is complete. You entered the ago human. You've emerged as something else, something that kills without conscience, follows without question, exists without truly living. Sparta has manufactured another perfect soldier. The system works exactly as designed, and tomorrow you'll help train the next generation to follow your path. The cycle continues. Children become killers, become teachers of killing. But first, sleep, dreamless, peaceful, the sleep of men with no souls left to trouble. Your parents would be proud. The state certainly is. You've given everything they demanded, received everything they promised. Worth the price. The question has no meaning here. Price implies choice. Choice implies humanity, and your humanity lies cooling in a hell house. 3 corpses arranged to maximize terror. You are Sparta now. Nothing more, nothing less, forever. The sun beats down on naked shoulders, bronze skin gleaming with oil and sweat. A girl of 17 springs forward, muscles coiled like a hunter's bow, racing toward the finish line while hundreds watch. This is Sparta's marriage market, though no one would dare call it that aloud. Athletic competitions determine more than simple victors here. The fastest runners, strongest wrestlers, most graceful dancers. These young women display their genetic worth before an audience shopping for breeding stock. Fathers evaluate potential daughters. In-law like farmers studying livestock. Which bloodline would strengthen their own? Which girl's hips promise easy births? Which one's shoulders suggest sons who could survive the age? Winner crosses the line breathing hard but controlled. Her name is Gorgo, though in years to come she'll be remembered for more than racing. Today she's simply another competitor in Sparta's ruthless selection process. Tomorrow she'll belong to whatever man claims her, willing or not. We discover something crucial watching these competitions. Spartan women train their bodies not for themselves but for the state's purposes. Every muscle built, every skill honed serves one function, producing superior warriors. Their strength is real, their power an illusion carefully maintained. Exercises themselves would shock audiences in Athens or Corinth. These girls throw javelins with deadly accuracy. They wrestle opponents to the ground, learning holds that could break bones. They run until lesser athletes collapse, building endurance that will serve them through multiple pregnancies. All perform naked, because shame is weakness, and modesty serves no genetic purpose. A visiting merchant from Thebes watches with disgust barely concealed. In his city, proper women stay indoors, speak only when necessary, cover themselves in public. These Spartan girls move like boys, fight like boys, display themselves without blushing. He doesn't understand that their immodesty is calculated policy. How can you select prime breeding stock through layers of cloth? The competitions continue through the afternoon. Discus throwing reveals upper body development. Long jumps demonstrate explosive power. Even the dancing contains violence, not gentle movements, but aggressive stamps and strikes that mirror combat training. Every event designed to showcase attributes valuable for producing warriors. Between contests, the girls oil each other's skin. Their hands move with practiced efficiency, highlighting muscle definition for better display. They've been doing this since childhood, when the state first decided their bodies belonged to Sparta's future. No embarrassment remains, only practical preparation for evaluation. Gorgo wins 3 events before the day ends. Her victories earn appreciative nods from watching elders, strong legs for birthing, broad shoulders for carrying, quick reflexes to pass to sons. She's 17, and already her life is mapped in pregnancies and pain. That night, marriage negotiations begin, not between families seeking alliance or affection, between men calculating genetic mathematics. Gorgo's father fields multiple offers. He weighs each suitor's combat record, his family's history of producing males, his likelihood of dying young and leaving a profitable widow. The girl herself has no voice in these proceedings. Her opinions matter as little as her desires. She trained her whole life for this auction, though they'd never use such crude terminology. Spartans prefer euphemisms for their human husbandry, sacred duty, state service, anything but the truth. 3 days later, Gorgo marries a man twice her age. Ceremony strips away what little autonomy she retained. Her shaved head marks her as property transferred between owners. The masculine clothes hide the body that sealed this transaction. In darkness, her new husband claims what he purchased, though purchased too is a word they'd never speak aloud. But marriage brings unexpected revelations. Her husband leaves immediately for his barracks. She won't see him again for weeks. This abandonment, traumatic elsewhere, grants Gorgo something she never expected: freedom. Spartan wives live essentially as widows with occasional visitors. No husband controlling daily activities, no man monitoring their movements. They manage households, conduct business, train their bodies as they choose. The very system designed to reduce them to breeding machines accidentally creates spaces men never thought to regulate. Gorgo discovers she can own property, not through any progressive ideals, but because someone must manage estates while warriors fight. She can speak in public, attend assemblies, voice opinions, not from respect, but because men are too busy killing to handle civilian affairs. She can take lovers, seek pleasure where she finds it, not from liberation, but because genetic diversity serves state interests. The paradox strangles logic. Sparta's hyper-masculine culture, so focused on producing male warriors, grants women freedoms unimaginable elsewhere in Greece. But these freedoms exist only within the cage of reproductive duty. Power without choice, authority without autonomy, liberation that serves oppression. Years pass. Gorgo bears 3 sons, each ripped away at 7. She takes 4 lovers with her husband's blessing, seeking superior genes wherever they might flourish. She accumulates property as warriors die, leaving widows who sell cheap to survive. By 30, she controls more wealth than most men. By 40, she influences policy through carefully placed words in powerful ears. Yet this power comes wrapped in chains. Every freedom exists because it serves Sparta's needs. She can own land because someone must. She can take lovers because bloodlines need variety. She can speak publicly because silence would waste a resource. Her liberation is another form of slavery decorated prettily. The gymnasium where girls train tells the story best. Young women build powerful bodies, learning their strength through competition. They feel the joy of muscles working, lungs burning, victory earned through effort. For these moments, they own themselves completely. Their bodies belong to them alone. Then the competitions end. Evaluators make their notes. Marriage negotiations begin, and those same strong bodies become currency in transactions they cannot refuse. The strength they built serves only to make them better breeding stock. The pride they felt transforms into another chain. Some women resist in small ways. They train harder than necessary, building bodies that intimidate potential husbands. They cultivate sharp tongues to discourage suitors. They pretend barrenness to avoid pregnancy's burden. But resistance has limits when the alternative is public rape in Artemis Temple. That particular horror deserves examination, not for sensationalism, but to understand how Sparta weaponized even resistance. A woman who refused motherhood faced ritual assault by multiple warriors while citizens watched. The act served as punishment, forced insemination, and public warning simultaneously. Religious ceremony wrapped around genetic rape. The temple stones stay cold regardless of season. Women dragged there find no mercy in marble or watching crowd. The warriors selected for this duty are always elite specimens, the better to ensure pregnancy from punishment. The crowd includes young girls forced to witness what awaits those who refuse their purpose: education through horror. The Spartan way, most submit before facing the temple. The threat alone breaks resistance. Those few who endure it emerge changed, carrying children they never wanted from violence they couldn't prevent. Some kill themselves afterward. The state counts these as acceptable losses. Individual women matter less than the lesson their suffering teaches. We need to sit with this ugliness, not because pain entertains, but because understanding historical horror prevents contemporary repetition. When states claim ownership of women's bodies, when reproduction becomes duty rather than choice, when strength serves only to enable oppression, Jez, these patterns echo through centuries. A grandmother speaks to her granddaughter in the growing dusk, both naked from training, muscles still warm from exertion. The Ellers's body shows decades of pregnancies, births, losses. Stretch marks map her service. Sparta scars record children torn away. She tells the girl truths mothers cannot speak, how to find joy in the spaces between duty, how to accumulate power through careful planning, how to survive when your body belongs to everyone but yourself. Lessons wrapped in athletic metaphors hidden in training advice. The girl listens with eyes too knowing for her years. She already understands her future. In 2 seasons, maybe 3, she'll stand naked before evaluators. Her speed will determine her husband. Her strength will dictate her children. Her will means nothing next to her womb. She also hears the hidden message. That strength, even enslaved, carries its own power. That minds can stay free when bodies cannot. That survival itself is a form of victory in systems designed to consume you. Small rebellions that keep souls alive in mechanized horror. Spartan women outlived their men consistently, not from easier arrives, but from physical conditioning that served them even as it enslaved them. They accumulated wealth through widowhood. They influenced policy through careful words. They created networks of power that operated parallel to male hierarchies. By the classical period, they owned 40% of Spartan land. Their wealth corrupted the system designed